Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Something Newsy. I'm Kaitlin, your co-editor-in-chief here at the Mesa Press, and I'm here with...
Hi, my name is Zundel, and I am the features editor.
And I am Matt Martinez. I am a staff writer and the photo editor.
And in honor of Women's History Month, which is in March, we're going to be focusing the conversation today about women's roles just in journalism and kind of just in the career life, how women... just kind of how we have to stifle ourselves sometimes to get where we want and in our careers and just kind of in life. So a very girl boss moment, a very feminism chat. So I think I kind of want to start today about how Zoom and just kind of like everything online has been super hard. I think for me personally, being a girl, being a woman, being young, and kind of having to like watch my tone when I communicate with people. Like when I'm sending emails, I feel like I send a lot of smiley faces, a lot of exclamation points, a lot of, hey, no worries, that's totally fine, even though sometimes it's not fine. But, you don't want to sound too like abrasive or just like too harsh. And I don't know really why that is or how that really even started or why I feel so aware of that. And Ray, do you feel any of that?
Definitely, I can say I don't think it's just an age thing. I think in a society, a lot of times we feel conditioned to kind of self-modulate and to consider how our opinion, our experiences come across and are received because we don't want them to seem dismissed or devalued. So we often spend a lot of time kind of constructing how best to craft a message so that it comes across in a way that we want it to. And I think a perfect example of this not being age related or experience related is a study that was done by Tanja Jacoby and Dylan Schweers of Northwestern Pritzker School of Law in Chicago. And they found that female justices were interrupted 3 times more than their male counterparts, regardless of seniority.
What?
And yeah, far more than any of their, fellow justices or lawyers. And so they found that they had to kind of take away some of their speech, kind of the way they would say, excuse me, or can I ask? Or they would kind of give these kind of crafted introductions to kind of soften what they were going to say. And they learned they had to stop doing that. So I think it's interesting to find that kind of at all ages and all levels in our society, women often feel that they have to self-modulate their message to get it across in the way they want to.
Yeah, instead of just being like very assertive, because I've had that a couple of times too. I work at iHeartRadio, and there are times where the female, my coworkers, they believe like they have to be soft and just not be more assertive in their jobs, and the men just walk all over them. And it's kind of frustrating because I believe, being a man myself, I believe women can be more of a managerial best than men. So that's just my take on it, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And it's crazy that really age just does not matter. It's just kind of like a woman, just the woman experience, I guess, because I know being young, I always feel like, God, when am I going to grow out of this? When am I going to get a little bit more like in control? Like I can do this, like, listen to me, I'm a woman, hear me roar, you know what I mean? And I just don't know when it's going to end. And I don't know how to unlearn that. And I don't really know, like Matt, as a guy, like, do you pick up on that? Do you notice that? Or is it kind of something that you...
I do. Don't and honestly, this I was watching Boardwalk Empire the other day, and the way they communicate with women back then, it kind of made me feel weirded, not I guess weirded out and more disturbed, because they look as for you guys as just cleaning maids and just cooking and all that stuff. They didn't see you guys as a working part of society. And yeah, I just thought that more women need to be more assertive, I guess.
Yeah.
Kaitlin, to your point, I think I found for myself, it's something, like you said, unlearning. It's something that I know I've had to, sometimes when I'm writing an email, I'll kind of re-go back over it and take out chunks of things that aren't necessary, that are me kind of walking someone into something or apologizing for taking their time, or all these things that I don't feel men often do, or I don't feel is necessary for the conversation. And so I really had to kind of unlearn that behavior and to have a finer ear and a finer eye for the things I'm putting out in the world, to take more ownership of the fact that I don't need to preface what I'm saying, and I don't need to self-modulate it. I
No,
think it still gets responses in a way that makes me feel like I do need to. I'm not saying that just unlearning that behavior on your own makes the societal impacts of that go away, but it has helped in terms of recognizing my own contribution and cycling of that behavior.
definitely. And I totally agree. It's kind of crazy because I I was in a poli sci class last semester, and it's political science is known to be kind of like a male dominated field. And I remember when I would speak up to talk, I would always be like, I would end my sentences or the things that I say with, I hope this makes sense, or I hope I didn't sound too weird. And I remember my professor, she's a woman, and she was the coolest professor ever, and she would always say like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, you make sense. And I think she kind of understood that, like, just that little sense of validation that like she hears me, and like what I was saying did make sense. And I would always say that because I was like, I hope I don't sound uneducated of what I'm speaking about, or I hope like the way I worded things and kind of like connected all my ideas made sense. But when men would speak in the class, or the boys would speak in the class, they would never say that afterwards. And sometimes they would make no sense at all. So I would be like, why am I like kind of doing that when I know I did make sense? Like, I know that was a really smart thing to say, you
But
know?
is it because over the course of like you guys like just being in the class, is it someone that made you feel that way? Like your answers and your opinions didn't matter, or
Mm.
I don't know. Ray, do you think there was a defining moment in your life when you realized like, geez, this is this is
I,
being a girl in like the life, I guess. I don't I don't know
I,
how to
I
phrase
think that's a powerful point, Matt, because I don't think I ever had that defining moment. I think I was always in, I was raised in a way, and I had, my, foundational education in a way that I was always taught to speak up. I was always taught that my opinion and my voice mattered. And I
Mhm.
had no problem using that voice when I was younger. I had no problem speaking up for myself, for others. I had no problem being direct. And when I think on it, I think it is something that I kind of grew into in sort of an awful way, that as I approached a higher academic life, as I approached um, professional life, as I approached the dating world, as you interact with more people when you grow up, I think you interact with a larger, broader fabric of society. I think it's no longer just the core people who raised you and who had those similar values. I think you're exposed to a lot of different ways of being and a lot of different societal entrainments. And I definitely have noticed that it's something, not a defining moment, but something that I kind of slipped into as
like
I grew up.
socialized almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, for both of you guys, do you think that the partners or the people you've met in your dating life have ever been um maybe not like taken aback by like a strong female presence? Matt, that's for you, but for Ray, do you think you've ever met a guy that's been like, oh, I don't like feminism, or like
I
powerful
I
person?
I to be honest, I'd rather have a girl who knows herself and to who's more assertive and all that stuff. And to say independent, like she doesn't have to depend on me to do stuff. Um I've dated a couple women who are just, they're very headstrong. They know that their opinion matters. They know that whatever they do affects the people around them, being a woman themselves in the workforce and in private life. So um, I'm used to it. I look for that in someone. So
Why do
um,
you think some men find that as like a turn off, or something that's like not okay, or like I don't know.
I think it's just a dominance thing, I guess. I think it's because they were programmed or taught or they saw that the men do everything and that the women are supposed to listen and abide by their rules, when in reality it should be a dual thing. It should be equal presence in something. I just think that's what it is. Yeah, that's just to me. That's my opinion.
Gotcha. Ray, what do you think?
I mean, I definitely have come across men who have had an issue with someone who speaks their own voice and their opinion. And, I think that is definitely something I've encountered. But I think, the scarier thing can be when we kind of turn that in on ourselves. And when it's a smaller things, right?
Yes.
It's not that I don't feel I can't speak my opinion.
Right.
It's that momentary hesitation before you say something, before you say an opinion.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that you can't speak that opinion or that people don't have okay reaction to it, but it's that self hesitation for a moment of, oh, wait, how do I say this in a way that all these people at the table know that I'm educated enough to speak on this piece, that I'm coming from a good intention place,
Right.
that you have all these internal battles of how best to phrase and express something. And in those hesitations, I think it quiets your voice. It puts this constant thought of maybe I shouldn't speak up right now. And I think just that over time can really wear in a person. And I mean, for you, Kaitlin, especially since, you're younger and experiencing this, how do you experience this? And, in both in college and in your relationships?
I mean, I feel like I was kind of dunked in head first. I really didn't date in high school. I mean, I had a high school boyfriend, but he was very kind of a neutral person, I guess, sort of say. He didn't have opinions and didn't want to have opinions and didn't want to discuss them with me. And I kind of later realized that was more of a maturity thing on him. But it's just crazy how I realized in that women are raised, or girls are raised, to become mature so quick. I knew how to talk about things that were uncomfortable. I knew how to have uncomfortable conversations. I knew how to go about things and to not be very level-headed and not very level-headed situations. And it's just really kind of disheartening to, I don't know, kind of to see different types of men and the way they're raised. And I think we have sort of an expectation, especially when we're young, to just kind of deal with it. Oh, they're not mature enough. Oh, they don't know yet. And it's just kind of like, well, it's not my job to walk them through the process.
No, it's not.
But whose job is it? You know what I mean? It's not, is it the moms? Did they do enough? Because then we're putting it again back all on the woman. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I don't really understand, whose job is it to teach these guys how to understand these issues, be aware of these issues, and to make amends with them.
I think it's just having more experience with it. I think it's just having more experience with women who do have a sense of level-headedness and all that stuff, because sometimes guys just pick the less smarter ones, I guess you could say, or the less confident ones, and they think that's how every female is going to be, and that's just not the case, to be honest with you.
Matt, something I want to ask you is, Kaitlin and I were just saying how we have felt like this hesitation when we are going to speak, or this hesitation when we craft an email to someone. Do we put an exclamation point, or is that too friendly? Do we phrase it this way?
I wouldn't.
Have you ever experienced that?
The exclamation point is fine. It's the smiley faces, because then you get a guy who's never had a email conversation, a business email conversation with a woman outside of work, that doesn't put a smiley face, so they think, oh, she's very friendly and all that stuff. But I think it's fine.
Have you ever experienced that kind of momentary self-hesitation of how you're coming across to someone when you say something or when you craft an email? Do you think, oh, I should phrase this, or I should apologize for taking their time, or does that occur to you? Or
it's more of talking in a more business tone for me. It's more like, it's not talking as a friend, because usually I would send emails like I would a text message like very short and concise, instead of having, you know, a business tone in emails, because I've noticed that a lot when I go to work. Like I talk to my boss and my managers like I would my friends from high school or from college, and uh that for me, that's my inner demon battles to fight with.
So it's more of a
um,
professional versus,
yeah,
okay, personal. Okay.
yeah.
So I feel like, kind of changing the conversation up here a little bit, I feel like 21st century feminism is so crazily different from, third wave feminism, second wave feminism, first wave feminism, because it's us kind of owning our femininity and being a little bit more daring with what we're showing to the world, being kind of not afraid, wearing pink. You see a lot of the trends right now in fashion are kind of like going back to like Paris Hilton, the 2000s, lots of glitter, lots of sparkle. And Ray, do you think that this is kind of like a step in the right direction? Do you think like it doesn't really matter? Do you think we're progressing as I guess, women in the world and owning our place?
Wow, what a simple question to throw at me. I think, honestly, I think there have always been aspects of that in each wave. I don't think we have necessarily progressed into some sort of new expression or understanding of feminism in terms of what you were talking about. But I do think that hopefully we are having a broader understanding that feminism is about all people, right? It's about men and women. It's about true equality in in the workforce, in pay, in expression, in freedom, and creativity, and in your your choices with your body. I think more than feeling like there's progress in how we are able to express, which I think in some instances is true. I think there's a deeper understanding in the younger generation and more excitement. But I think the thing that scares me is that there is still such a huge response and conflict around the rights that we have with our bodies,
Yep.
around healthcare,
Yep.
around everything to do with that. I think the fact that our bodies are still a battleground is something we should not still be dealing with in 2021.
It blows my mind. It really just blows my mind how like we really think as men we could tell y'all or just throw money in y'all faces and be like, yo, you can just take care of this real quick.
Yeah.
Like it blows my mind. And then even with what state was it that's not allowing abortions now? I know there's a state.
Oh, I forgot what it is.
Was it
Yeah,
Georgia?
like it's one of the southern states where they weren't they're not allowed to have an abortion even if it was rape or anything like that. And it blows my mind, like you guys are still fighting, to own your guys' right to do stuff with your guys' own bodies.
What's interesting to me too is I just feel like we've been having the same conversations about it, the same science about it, and there still really hasn't been like a breakthrough moment, I feel like. And it's super interesting that it's just become kind of partisan, where I feel like men's rights or men's issues aren't really like, first of all, a topic of discussion, and then secondly, even like are partisan at all. And it's just really interesting that I feel like a lot of what women do are politicized, extremely politicized, and we're not even really even listened to in that sphere, which is kind of crazy, and I just don't really understand it.
I think that plays into, I mean, we see that also with communities of color, with the right to vote, with women's rights, with a lot of those issues that are not on the surface partisan issues,
Right.
They are not issues, but they have the narrative has been woven that way in order to create fractures, I believe.
And mostly by men.
Yeah. white men in power specifically, by and large, I would say, in my own personal opinion. But
Exactly.
I think that is something that I think we won't see breakthroughs, because until we really address the fact that those who are benefiting from the system are in control of the system. And I think getting more women into representation, into seats in the House, I think like what Matt said, is having, women who are in places of power, on the boards of big companies.
Because to me, I honestly, like I said earlier, like I believe women are better managers and better bosses, to be honest with you. I think sometimes there's just something in women bosses that um it calms down the situation. It eases the whole situation. Um, and then when they need to be assertive, they are assertive. Even my manager that got laid off due to this last COVID break, um, I think she was my favorite boss out of all of them, because even when things got rough, she knew how to control her emotions and get everyone level headed. But also when it was time to be assertive and tell her upper boss, which is a white male, like, nah, this is not the way to do it, she would do it. And like you said, Ray, I do think we need women more in senates and houses and in Congress more.
I think it's interesting that, sorry, Kaitlin, I think it's interesting that you said assertive a couple times there, because, there's this double bind phenomenon where it's, if women are considered nice, then they're considered too soft, too emotional, right? If you call them assertive, then they're considered abrasive, or, the B word or other words.
Exactly.
And you don't get that kind of commentary on men in leadership roles. They say they're confident, they're in charge, they're leaders. You never hear them being called abrasive, or those kind of the words that have emotional connotations attached to them, right?
Yeah.
And what you're saying is the opposite, is that your female boss has, in your experience, has been the one who has been best equipped to calm down situations, to deal with things in a very responsive, logical, practical, and helpful way for the staff.
And mostly, and I've been on this earth for 26 years, and literally all the women in my life, whether it was teachers, advisors, whatever, um, uh, whatever, they've all helped me out and to get to the place where I'm at now. They've all given me a chance. They've all, looked past my resume and my background to just get to know me. And I think that's helped me out in the long run to get to where I'm at now. Because I think with the guys, they can just look at my name, uh, look at my attitude or feel threatened or whatever, instead of looking at it as a collaborative effort, I think. And so, yeah, like I give the utmost respect to all the women in the world in my life and who's out there today, especially you two women.
Thanks. And I mean, obviously what we're saying is generalizations, right?
Yeah.
There are men who are very well equipped and who are great bosses.
Oh yeah.
And I've there are definitely, but I think what we're talking more is to the broader societal experiences we've been having.
There shouldn't even be a conversation that involves gender regarding if a boss is good because she's a woman. And because she's a man or a man, or
it should be whoever gets the job done effectively, honestly.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
But it's just interesting because so last year in my poli-sci class, I did like this kind of my big research paper was on consumerism, climate change, and capitalism, which are three big things. And it was crazy because like climate change is truly a women's issue. And when we're involved in it, I was reading the study and it was like, when we're involved in it, it's okay, well, if the world ends, how can we can't we can't overpopulate the earth because, that's a woman's issue. And then what are we going to do? Women are going to, they're not equipped to handling that. And then it was just usually women are more likely to recycle. They're more likely to buy from eco-friendly brands. They're more likely to, believe in climate change, but usually they're left out of climate conversations, even though it is fully a women's issue. And usually women are the ones working in sweatshops. They are, being affected by this, but there's nothing, about that when you talk about climate change and the climate crisis, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I think also that, with the climate crisis, what we are going to see, the biggest shift we are going to see is displacement. We're going to see huge populations being displaced because of the climate crisis. And that burden is going to largely fall on women who are going to have to navigate crossing borders and finding new places and finding new ways of sustaining their families and their children. And I think, like you said, that is not something that is really being discussed when we talk about climate crisis. I think often we focus on recycle and the oceans and a lot of the, obviously things that we need to do, but
Right.
a lot of the kind of the things that have been sold to us as easy ways to fix the solution, the problem. And
Right.
they're not really honest, right? Because the whole recycling thing was started by the what do you call it, the trash companies, was started by the plastics corporations,
The institutions that uphold.
Yeah, the institutions that are benefiting from
Exactly.
the system. And so we often, when we talk about climate crisis, especially since this month is has Earth Day, I think it's important to notice and to talk about not just the ways that we think we are fixing the problem, but the bigger picture of how this is going to fall on mostly women,
Right.
to handle the impact of displacement and what that means, because displacement entails conflict, it entails sexual violence threats, it entails food issues, food shortages, health issues.
For sure.
So that's going to be something that we're going to really have to come to grips with, because that's coming up for all of us to deal with.
Exactly. Beautifully said. Snaps. Okay, so I think I want to end on a little bit of a lighter note, because these conversations can get heavy, they can get hard to talk about. We're all having a little Zoom fatigue. It's been a long day. So my little last question for everybody is, who is like a girl, either or a woman in TV, movies, the music industry, that has been a really positive person to look up to, or someone you really admire? I don't know who mine is yet. I'm trying to think. I should have wrote it down. But if anyone has someone who comes to the top of your head, feel free to jump in.
I got a couple. I have a couple. I have two. I think she's the general manager for the Miami Marlins. I'm definitely gonna butcher her name. Um, let me look her name up real quick. But my other one is Cardi B.
Why
Um,
Kanye?
why? I think she's ruffling some feathers up with talking about the presidency and COVID and women's empowerment. Just coming from her background as well, coming from being a stripper and coming from the sex worker lifestyle and all that stuff. And for her to speak out on popular issues and winning Grammys and still being level-headed, coming from the Bronx where she's from, um, I think she's a great influence for all women.
Fully agree. It's
Well
really
put.
I was gonna say, it's really cool how a person doesn't have to fit feminism. I feel like feminism kind of fits a person, and they kind of make it their own, and everyone has like a different experience that they can create and craft to make feminism fit them, and to redefine what it means to be a woman. And in the music industry and what it means to kind of cross those borders into politics or whatever she wants to talk about and kind of use her platform for good. So yeah.
And my other one, the general manager for the Florida Marlins, her name is Kim Ying, last name NG. I I think she's a very powerful influence for women in general because baseball is definitely a male dominant sport, and for her to be a general manager of a really prominent baseball franchise, I give her a lot of kudos, and I give Derek Jeter a lot of kudos for hiring.
For sure.
I would say to
Those
kind
are
of
mine.
I'd say to piggyback off what you were saying, Kaitlin, I think one of the biggest things we can do to progress the movement is to not judge each other.
Exactly.
Is to accept that whatever, role in life, whatever choices with career, with children, with however you want to live your life, however you want to, what you do with your body, what you wear, how you express your femininity. I think the biggest thing we can do is learn to not judge each other and also to support each other and also to be kind to ourselves as we kind of unlearn this process that we have been kind of trained by society. For the women that I am inspired by, I can't think of any kind of famous celebrity off the top of my head, but I would say that there are a lot of creatives on social media, on like Instagram, that I have been seeing, especially in the past 2 years, come into their own voice and really express, bridge their own personal experiences, especially in communities of color and underrepresented communities, and to take charge and to reclaim some of that space, some of that creative space, some of that business space.
Totally.
Kind of, get their bank and to kind of express that this is me and I'm going to fully be in this space and you can take it or leave it. And so I feel very inspired by a lot of those women who are doing that work.
Totally. And it's super cool how people are kind of like reinventing Instagram, because I feel like social media is kind of seen as like a woman's thing. Like we post pictures of, what we wear and whatever. And it's really cool that they're kind of like, yeah, we do. So we're going to monetize on it. We're going to make this my business. Like we're going to, do this for real. And I think
it's awesome.
Super cool.
See, and to piggyback what you guys are saying too, I think how because how we're saying like each generation of women knows it gets better and better, and I think this generation knows what they're worth, to be honest with you, with everything going on with from social media down to OnlyFans. I think women know who they are, what they are, and they're just gonna use that to their advantage.
Yeah. And
Slay queen.
I think mine, so I have two. So I played soccer my whole life. So obviously, I looked up to like the US women's national team, people like Megan Rapinoe, who kind of like dominated her space. And she was, I think, one of the very first athletes that was really open about her sexuality and being gay. And I always thought that was super dope, that she was kind of like really honest about it, because I feel like there was no one in kind of like representing United States sports in the soccer sphere of things that was really open about that. And I love what she's doing for women. They just decided to make kind of soccer playing cards. If you ever like bought like Pokemon cards as a kid, kind of like that, into NFTs, which is like the newest art thing. I really don't know how to explain NFTs at all. But
yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, I'd leave that one for another podcast.
Yeah, another something.
So confusing. I do not understand them yet. I've tried. But my second person would probably be Joan Didion. I don't know if I pronounced her name correctly, but I recently read one of her books, and she's just like super awesome. Like she's such a good writer. Just like her life is so like, I don't even know. It's like whimsical. It almost doesn't feel real. It's like super like, she's just lived a really cool life. She's been everywhere. She's written for everybody. She's super like, in her reading, her like the tone of voice that comes across is so wise, but also at the same time very like strong and confident. And I really picked up on that, and I thought that was super cool. So yeah, those are my 2 girl bosses.
I think that's kind of a perfect way to kind of wrap this up, is reclaiming your voice and dominating your space. That's
Exactly.
like the 2 key things, right?
Yes, perfect. So everyone, thank you for listening to Something Newsy, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.